YouTube, welcome back. My name is Josh James, and on this channel we talk about real life, real lessons, and real adventure. All right, so this video is going to be on my second live, right? The last video, I talked about the transition that I had from life 1 to life 2, so now we're going to go to life 2. So at this point, I signed up for the military, so I'm headed to boot camp in Fort Knox, Kentucky. I had dreadlocks at the time going down my back, down to my shoulders. I didn't want to give the Army, because I was going Army active duty, regular Army. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of cutting my dreads off. So I got a haircut before I left, right? I couldn't give it to them like that. I couldn't. I had to let them earn their meal, so to say. So I go to Fort Knox, Kentucky. First time I've ever seen snow in my life. I'm there. I get the basic training, and I hate it. I hate it. Right? Hated everything about it. Being told what you can do, what you can't do, when to eat. I remember we got off the bus. They got us processed, and we went to the cafeteria. They said, all right, y'all got 3 minutes to eat. So I'm looking like I'm still in line. I'm like, I know you can't be serious, you know? Maybe this is one of them psychological warfare type things, you know, the mind games the military be playing. So sure enough, I got my food. I sat down, and I start to eat. I take one bite, and he says, all right, time's up. He puts his hand on the table, his whole arm, and he freaking knocks every tray off the table onto the ground and said, get up, let's go. So I ain't even eat my first day there. I went to bed starving that night. You know what I'm saying? Hated it. I'll do another video going into specifics on the military, but I hated it. I couldn't stand it. I even tried to get out of the military in basic training. That's something a lot of people don't know. I tried to get out. My cousin reached out to me, and because you know back then we didn't have cell phones, we used to write letters home. My cousin sent me a picture of a letter that I wrote, and man, I couldn't believe what I put in that letter, man. But yeah, I was trying to get out. I ended up thugging it out though, sticking it out for the long run. I made it past basic training. After that, I went to advanced training in Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland. Went there. I was there for about 6 months. Boot camp was 9 weeks back then. I don't know what it is now. I went to my advanced training for 6 months. My first duty station was in South Korea. You know, I didn't even know what a Korea was, to be honest with you. I didn't know what Korea was. I didn't know nothing about the Korean War. I didn't know that there was a North and South Korea. I couldn't even find Korea on a map. You know, I got my orders, and I'm asking people like, what's Korea? Where is Korea? You know, so kind of got the rundown on that. Ended up going to Korea, longest flight I've ever been on. I think the flight from the last point in the States, it was a 13.5-hour flight. Hated it. Sucked. Went to Korea. And work-wise, Korea sucks, man. Because technically, Korea is still at war. North Korea and South Korea, technically still at war. Just a little ceasefire agreement was made. But technically, they're still at war. So work-wise, it sucked. Because we're treating Korea as a war zone per se, right? So we're always going to the field. We're going to the field for 30 days, you know, doing combat drills nonstop. We're on high alert because we're preparing for any day now. North Korea is going to invade the South. So work-wise, it sucked, but outside of work, man, Korea is awesome. Loved Korea. Beautiful country. Real nice people. South Koreans are one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. I'm telling you that right now. They're a little money hungry. They bought that paper for sure. They bought their money, but nicest people I've ever met in my life. The best food. Man, I really indulged in the culture in South Korea big time. I even was planning on, I told myself whenever I retired from the military, I was going to move back to South Korea. That's how much I loved it. You know, loved Korea, man. Had a real good time. I think my only issue there was, you know, you got to see it from my perspective, you know. I'm an 18-year-old kid. You know, I come from the ghetto, come from the projects, ain't never had nothing, right? I remember one time I wore one pair of pants the entire summer. The entire 3 months of summer, I wore one pair of pants, right? I went from nothing to now I'm 18 years old. You're dropping me off in a foreign country. I ain't never been nowhere outside Louisiana. Yeah, I think we visited like Orlando, Florida one time, but all I knew was New Orleans and all I knew was Louisiana. So here I am, an 18-year-old kid that come from nothing. You drop me off in a foreign country and you give me a steady paycheck every 2 weeks. Man, I acted a donkey in Korea, man. I'm telling you. I ran the streets in Korea. I'm telling you. That's a story for another time, all right? But love Korea. Had a blast in Korea, man. Loved it. So anyway, leave Korea. I go to my first duty station stateside. It's in El Paso, Fort Bliss. I'm there. I went to a non-deployable unit first. We were testing future weapons for the Army at the time. So we were non-deployable. But then once we was done with that, got transferred to a combat unit, and I ended up going on my first deployment. Now, the second life in the military, right? I got married. I had a girlfriend that I had before I went to the military. Before I went to the Army, I had a girlfriend. And me and her ended up getting married. Okay, for all the wrong reasons. You know, in the military, you get paid more money when you're married. And you don't have to live in a barracks. They'll pay you money for groceries and they'll pay you money for rent or mortgage or whatever you want to do so you can live outside of the base. Right? So it was a win-win. Got married for all the wrong reasons. And at the time, yes, I transitioned to my second life, but I wasn't the best person. I for dang sure wasn't the best husband. I wasn't a great husband at all. I really treated her wrong. And that really bothers me even to this day. You know, so to my first wife out there, you know who you are. If you watching, if you're listening, your initials are NC. And I don't know if I've ever told you, but I'm sorry. I really am. I am truly and utterly sorry for the way I treated you and the way I treated our marriage. You know, that's something that I still live with to this day. It kills me, and that's something that I'm going to have to deal with and answer to when I meet the maker. You know? So, moving on. I'm in El Paso. I ended up getting divorced from my first wife. Right? We're going to Afghanistan in my new unit. We're prepping to go to Afghanistan. You know, I'm out there. Yeah, I'm trying to transition. I'm not in the streets no more, but I'm not the best person. You know, I'm starting my transition on being who I was to what I was becoming. You know, I met another female out there in El Paso. We didn't get married. I went to Afghanistan first. So I ended up getting divorced, right? All that's done. I go to Afghanistan for a year. Afghanistan was a whole nother experience. I'll go into detail on that on another video, but it was the coldest documented winter in Afghanistan when I went, and it was cold, cold, cold. You know me, we tropical people where I come from. Man, Afghanistan was cold. A lot of people don't know this, but Afghanistan is also a really beautiful country. It is beautiful. Some parts in Afghanistan are mesmerizing. Story for another time. All right, I come back from Afghanistan. Me and the new girl doing our thing. We end up getting married. You know, she was Hispanic, by the way, and I ended up moving in with her and her family. And I lived with that Mexican family. I'm talking like Mexican, like from Mexico Mexicans, like illegal Mexicans. So I got introduced to that entire culture. I moved outside of El Paso with them in a small Mexican town. I was the only black guy there. They didn't have any white people there. It was all Mexicans. I had to learn how to speak Spanish out there. So I was really immersed into the Hispanic culture, and I loved it. I ate it up, loved it. I still embrace that Hispanic culture to this day. And like the first wife, my second wife, I want to apologize to you too. I don't know if I've ever told you. Well, actually I have. But I'll tell you again, you know, your initials are YB. And I am truly and utterly sorry for the way I treated you, the way I handled our marriage. You know, I wasn't a good person. You know, I'm trying to be a better person now, but I wasn't a good person, and I'm sorry, and that still eats me to this day as well. And like I said, I'm going to have to answer for that in the next life, right? So we end up getting divorced, of course. I ended up getting out of the military. I got to the point where I told myself, you know, retirement was 20 years. So I told myself, if I hit 10, if I go over that halfway hump, I might as well stay for the 20. So I had 8 years in. I had to make a decision. My contract was up. It was either re-enlist, which is standard re-enlistment is like 3.5 years, or it was back then, which was going to put me over the 10. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and get out. Got out of the military. I went straight to a police academy. Did the police academy thing. Like I said in the previous video, it was hard times for cops back then. You know, I couldn't get on nowhere. I threw out a lot of applications. First department to hit me back up was in New Mexico. I actually got hit up by 2 police departments in New Mexico around the same area. So ended up moving to New Mexico, becoming a cop, doing the cop thing. Like I said already, I got divorced from my second wife. You know, started seeing my current wife I have now. I did that for 10 years. You know, I did police officer. I worked for the drug task force as a narcotics agent. You know, I did undercover operations. I've identified and dismantled drug trafficking organizations. I was a sergeant. I was a patrol sergeant. I was a lieutenant. I was a patrol lieutenant, support services lieutenant, community services lieutenant. I did a lot of things. A lot of things in the police force, SWAT. You know, I was a perimeter guy, entry guy, a drone pilot. I was least lethal instructors. You know, I instructed and used the beanbag shotguns, the grenade launchers, stuff like that. I was a sniper. I was a SWAT sniper. Had a lot of sniper training, a lot of sniper schools I went to. I was in charge of the sniper team. I eventually ended up becoming the assistant commander of the SWAT team for that department. Did a whole lot in the police force. Whole lot. Lot of experience, a lot of time there. I didn't have any children. I didn't have any children with my first wife. I didn't have any children with my second wife. Okay? Things ended up not working out with me and my second wife. So we ended up divorcing. I was seeing my current wife now. She ended up getting pregnant and, you know, ended up having my first child, my first son. I think we're going to end it right there, YouTube. We'll cut the video right here, and I'll go into more detail on what happened next when I transitioned from my second life to my third life. All right? Hopefully I see y'all in the next video. Until next time, stay strong, stay sharp, always keep moving forward. Until next time.